Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Francis and Friends. We're so glad to have you tuning in this morning. Donnie Swaggart, your co-host, and we have a tremendous program today. And before I say any more, I just want to put the word out. If you personally know of a Viet Nam veteran, you need to go to the phone, call them, text them, whatever, and tell them to tune in to the program today, because the program we're going to have today and the special guest that we have is going to be speaking of their situations during the Vietnam War. And, you know, it's funny, before I introduce everybody, I'll say I made this statement last night. I was one of the last age groups to have to register for the draft because of the Vietnam War. And I can remember the day that I had drove downtown. I can remember the day I got the letter saying you have X number of days to register. And if you don't, it's a violation of the law, and et cetera, et cetera. And so I went right down, registered for the draft, registered to vote. And most of you that watch the program, you know how much I love history. And, you know, I was sweating it out for a while, and then I kept noticing, well, we are sending more troops home than we're sending over, so that's good for me. Number two, I found out that being the only living male heir of the family name, I could still get drafted, but I would not be put into combat. They changed that from World War II in Korea because too many family names were eradicated when the only living male was passed away or killed in combat. And but I'm saying that to say this: I love reading war history, but it's only been in the last 10 years that I've started reading books on the Vietnam War, and I tell you why. That was my generation's war, even though I came at the end of it. And it was always hard. Being with people that had gone over there, knowing people, with someone the day they got their draft notice. We were together. Every time I go to Washington, D.C., and I've been there multiple times, and every time I go, there's two things that I do. It doesn't matter what the weather is, doesn't matter what's going on. There's two things I do. I go to the Lincoln Memorial, and I go to the Vietnam Memorial. And every time I've been to the Vietnam Memorial, and this is the God's honest truth, every single time there has been someone at the wall for the first time finding a relative's name. And you stand off to the side and you see that reaction of when they find that name, and then the tears and the sobs, people laying it, putting fire. It is moving. The last time I was there, I did something I'd never done. When you walk the whole length of the Vietnam Memorial, when you get to the end, in two big plexiglass boxes are two huge books. And it's the books of the dead. And you can go in, and they've got it sealed up, but you can put your hands in and turn over, and it's in alphabetical order. And you can find a name, and then it will tell you where they are on the wall. Now, I've never done that because it was just...
Sacred.
It was just, that's right, sacred. I never could, but... I got to the end this last time, and I was looking at that, and I said, man, I'm just gonna open this. And I opened it up, and this is the truth. I looked down, and the first name was a young man from Baton Rouge. You talking about taking your breath away.
Yeah.
And so if you have... so it's been though I never served and though I wasn't there, it's my generation's war, and it's just been, it's still fresh. I mean, really, it's still fresh. But now I have, and I thank the Lord that I've gotten over that, because I've learned so much history. But today, The reason why we want you to tune in, if you're a Vietnam vet, and let everybody know, is our very special guest. And if you saw last night, you saw Brother Dave Roever. And, Jim Nations is here that's joining us today.
Good morning. Great to be here.
And
Good
then
Brother
Dan Dang, which is Dave's associate and a Vietnamese, and we're going to be sharing his story. Yeah. But our special guest today is Dave Roever. And Dave, we are so honored, so glad to have you on campus last night, today. And we're going to be, after the program, we've got a meeting and we'll get into it a little bit later because of a project that we're going to possibly undertake about translating the Expositor Study Bible into the language of the Mahong people. They are the mountain people of Vietnam. They fought on the side of the U.S. during Vietnam. They were despised by both the North Vietnamese and the South Vietnamese. But they were known as loyal and fierce fighters, jungle fighters. We trained them. We supplied them with weapons. They fought alongside U.S. troops, especially Special Forces troops, because they were so good. And Dave, we just want you to know, I just want to say, first of all, thank you for your service to the United States of America. Thank you for what you are doing for veterans of all wars. Dave operates two clinics, two places, one in near Kerrville, Texas, one in the mountains of Colorado, where he deals with veterans. And they come in, they have a place to stay, post-traumatic stress, other situations. Some have attempted suicide. Some are in great, great depression. Matter of fact, the last video I saw, what was so startling was I saw a group of men, and there were men with gray hair, Vietnam veterans, still struggling with the trauma, and then all the way up to Gulf War, to Iraq, Afghanistan, and seeing them, even though there was a great age difference, they were all dealing with the same situations. But Dave, thank you for everything.
Pastor Donnie, I love you, man. It's so good to be here and to be with both of you today. And I want to tell you, you really encapsulated that well. I didn't have the lottery. I was just drafted.
Right.
And because I'm a little bit older.
Yep.
And they told me that Uncle Sam liked me a lot and wanted to confirm that I was in good health. They wrote me a letter to take a physical. I wrote back and said, I feel fine, thanks. It didn't work. But what I'd like to say at the very beginning, before we go any further, for those Vietnam veterans that may tune in, Vietnam veterans don't like to hear other Vietnam veterans very often. And the reason is, they think so often that their situation is so difficult for them, they don't want to be reminded of it. That's one. Number two, some of them came back, and in the entire war, they were dispensing tools in the workshop, in the motor pool, and never had a bullet fired at them. And they feel a sense of guilt that I didn't do my part. You did your part, Bubba. I don't know which camera look. I'm gonna look at this
right there.
You did your part, my friend, and without that, without you, we couldn't function. Nobody could. And then the third reason is because some guys are very arrogant, and if you're one of them, you can turn me off right now. But if you got any, we'll call it guts. If you got the guts, I challenge you to stay with us today, because today you'll understand that one Vietnam veteran is no better than the other, and one age group of veterans that you point out is no better than another age group. The global war on terror veterans are who I deal with almost exclusively, except for Vietnam veterans. So I can't leave my guys behind. But today I travel in Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, UAE, Afghanistan, Iraq, Bosnia, Syria, Kosovo, South Africa, North Africa, South Korea, all over the world with troops. Because the story I have to share, it's not about me. I'm no hero. I don't think I'm that. I always saw myself as fat, ugly, and stupid. And my wife told me, don't call yourself stupid. I thought about that. And I said, okay, then I'm just fat and ugly. So what I'm saying to you is this. I don't want our veterans to tune in thinking they're going to hear some magnificent war story of how good I am. My friend, I was raised a little preacher kid, never had a black eye until I went in the military. Then I had my whole eye blown out. So I guess that counts. What I'm trying to say is I want you guys to watch and just know a friend is talking to you.
Man.
I'm your friend. And I want to encourage you and you guys in the global war on terror, Gulf Storm, whenever, wherever. I've been there. I work today for DOD. I go to every one of those places. And during the war, I was there constantly. I understand. You don't have a talking head. You've got an advocate right here. I'll be your friend. So I just wanted to say that up front.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, if we do have Vietnam veterans watching, and everyone, before we go any further, this is Brother Dave's life story entitled Scarred. And we're going to get into, in just a moment, the horrific wounds that he suffered in Vietnam. But you can order it from DaveRoever.org. Would you put that information on the screen, please? DaveRoever.org. And the name of the book is Scarred. And let me just read one look, because last night when I had the book and I saw this, I couldn't get this out of my mind all night long. It stuck. This one little statement, I want to read it. And this is a statement you made. Every time I look in a mirror and put on my hair, stick on my ear, and start my day, forgetting is not possible, forgiving is. That is one of the most powerful statements I have ever read in my life. Let me say it again. Every time I look in a mirror, put on my hair, stick on my ear, and start my day, forgetting is not possible, forgiving is. That is the essence of the gospel right there.
Yes, it is, sir.
That's the essence of the gospel. You need to order it, DaveRoever.org. And you will, when you start reading it, you will not be able to put it down, I guarantee. And I would hope that after today that he gets so many orders, he has to go reprint a whole bunch of other books. That's what I hope. Dave, you were drafted when?
I was drafted in 1968. I was a Bible college student. I was at Southwestern University.
It's where I went.
That's right. And I got this little letter, told me to take a physical. And like I said, I told him I felt fine, but that wasn't good enough. So I took my physical. And I laughingly tell the truth. It's the only exam I passed that semester. I got an O+ on the blood test. And but they told me I was gonna be drafted in the Army. And at 8:30 the next morning, I was going to be sworn in Dallas, Texas. Well, 8:30 the next morning, I was standing in front of and sat down at the desk of the Navy recruiter, and I signed every piece of paper he slid underneath my ballpoint pen. I joined the Navy so I wouldn't get hurt serving in Vietnam with the Army. I've never been on a ship yet. I served in the Navy Special Forces. I was on a little riverboat and got my backside blown off. And I'm telling you, it was a huge experience.
Now, you were a part of a specialized unit that we've all seen. If you've seen any documentaries of the river wars in Vietnam, the swift boats.
Yep.
And you were officially called, what was the name of
it? It was a Brown Water Black Beret. There were 3 units, 3 task forces. Task Force 115, 116, and 117. Task Force 116 was our unit. We were on the little river boats made of fiberglass. We were called Brown Water Black Beret. And I was assigned to SEAL Team 1 for my training. I went to Vietnam with SEAL Team 1, and I was injured with SEAL Team 1, but make it very clear, I was a Brown Water Black Beret. I'm a boat guy. I drove the fast boats. And I had the time of my life. Sometimes we get bored, we throw the engine cover overboard and sit on it and surf down that river behind that boat. And they said we were trolling for alligators, but actually it was quite an experience to be with the SEAL teams. And we had the highest KIA, killed in action, in the war per capita.
Now, how long had you been in country
You're amazing. See, a lot of people don't use that term, in country. You have studied the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
You have. You're asking all the right questions. I was in country 8 months and took 2 hits on the last 3 days I was there. I was supposed to have been there 13 months, but on July the 26th, 1969, July 23rd, 1969, I took my first hit. It kept me off the river 3 days. It was a laceration through my cheek, which was 3 days later blown off, and it was steel that got into my eye from some shrapnel, and they had to get that out so I wouldn't lose my eye. 3 days later, I had no replacement, and they had to put me back on the river. And on the 26th of July, I picked up a grenade.
Well, before you get that far,
We'll stop with the grenade.
y'all were on a assigned mission.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Now, were you receiving fire, and that's what caused you to
On the 23rd, we received fire.
or were you giving fire on this time?
The 26th, we went back to the exact place I was injured to take intelligence reports. I knew when we beached that little boat on the bank of that river, I knew. I was serving God. Let me tell you something. Vietnam didn't take Jesus away from Dave. And it didn't take Dave away from Jesus. I stayed tuned to the Holy Spirit the whole time there. I know for a fact he would warn me and my entire crew. We never lost a man. My crew stayed, every one of us lived through it. Now, they're dead now. A lot of them drank themselves. I won't go down that road, but here's the facts. I knew the enemy was there on the 26th of July. I felt their presence. I couldn't see them. I couldn't hear them. I couldn't smell them, and you could smell them. They smoked a lot of pot. I could smell the enemy. I didn't that day. There was no indication whatsoever, but the Lord told me, they're here, beware. That's why I drew back to throw the grenade, to burn down the brush, detonate booby traps, get me into that bunker to get them out alive because dead men can't talk. And when I drew back, my life would change for eternity. My life was in my own hands, and I didn't know it. I didn't know it. And there are guys watching right now. Some may have that gun or that Jack Daniels, and they're considering taking their life because 22 a day as a minimum, 22 a day plus take their life of veterans. Put it down. Your life's in your hands, and listen, because today it's going to change your life.
Amen.
And Sister Swaggart is my heroine, and I don't even do drugs.
Well, can you? Okay, you got us to the point, and it was so riveting last night. I could have stayed there for hours.
Thank you.
You take out a phosphorus grenade to throw, and a sniper fires at you.
Yep. I didn't know what happened. I thought it was I thought we were hit by B-40 anti-tank rocket propelled grenade, RPG. It's called.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. But that RPGs for tanks destroy fiberglass boats. They just turn. I always tell people, turn it to white powder, drive a cocaine addict insane. All that powder in so little time. But the fact is, that was the weapon that killed most of our guys. It wasn't small arms fire, 50 cals
RPG,
or 20 millimeter. It was that rocket, because it killed everybody. Well, in fog of war, they call it, I didn't know what happened. I just bailed. I jumped overboard to get in the water because I'm on fire. Phosphorus burns at 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. I was covered from the waist up. The water could not extinguish it, but it did one thing very important. It washed some of it off. But conversely, it turned the water to steam, and I was literally steaming. So it's a no-win. And when I surfaced, I inhaled and sucked that fire right down into my bronchial tubes. All the follicles that push out moisture that you cough, and if you don't cough, it just keeps working that stuff up. They're all gone. They don't come back. And so I cough a lot, and I try. People don't think I have COVID. But the fact is, they don't come back. And as a result of that day, I was laying on my back on the bank of the river, and a hole burned right through my throat. And my tongue had swelled to fill my mouth. I couldn't speak. But I was breathing through my chest. But the first words, one, I fought off one of my guys. He was brand new, just been there 2 weeks. He didn't know what phosphorus could do. He was trying to help me, and I'm screaming, don't touch me, don't touch me. I don't want him to get burned. I didn't feel any pain yet. I'm on fire, I don't feel a thing. I'm in shock. But I'm telling him, don't touch me. And the next words were, God, and fire came out of my mouth. I still believe in you. That's an exact quote. All my team remembers it. Everybody quotes it. God, I still believe in you. Then I swam to the riverbank with fingers flopping, blood shooting out of an open artery. I'm on fire still because phosphorus water won't extinguish it. I get on my knees. I'm looking at the damage, and I'm a guitarist. And all I could think was, these fingers were hanging over on tendons. This thumb was spinning back and forth. I'm still bleeding out the artery. This thumb was blown off. That's been put on. They made that for me later. So I'm looking at my hands, and I was hallucinating a guitar right in front of me. I saw a guitar, and I spoke to it like it was a person. I said, "Guitar, I'll play you again." Of all things to say, that was the last words I said on the bank of that river. When they got me in the helicopters, called a dust off, later on, I said one more word. I said, "Medic." They thought I was dead. When I yelled medic, they thought I'd come back to life.
Well, you were rolled up in a blanket.
I was rolled up in a blanket. They had me KIA. It went all the way to the Pentagon. Took 34 years to correct that. But the medical team corrected it in the helicopter. But the medical records and your service record are two different things. They don't track each other necessarily, especially whenever you're KIA on one of them. And so that day, I spoke the things that were important to me. One, I didn't want my fellow guy to get hurt. He's a sweetheart. He was a good guy. He hadn't been tarnished by the war yet. He'd just been there 2 weeks. I didn't want him to get where I was. That's why I want these veterans to hear me. I'm not going to take them back someplace they don't want to go, because when this program was over with Sister Swaggart and you guys and my best friend in the whole world, who happens to be a Vietnamese, this man and I have been partnering for decades. This is the product of being able to forgive what you can't forget. He had to forgive, too. This guy had to forgive. He's a kid growing up in Vietnam. We're blowing his country to hell. I don't say that cursing. I'm telling you, that's what it was, a living hell. Rockets landing in their front yard that were destined for us. He ended up having to deal with it. And then a boat person with a mark on their lives to kill them all, kill this man and his entire family, marked to be executed. There's a whole story there we'll get to. Thank God we're not in a great big rush, I don't think.
No, we're not.
There's some details you're going to hear today that are mind-boggling. It is the book of Acts that has never been finished being written.
You know,
and we're a little piece of it.
I've read and been told, and I want you to confirm that you know, in combat, when you serve, of course, you love your country. But when the bullets are flying, you're fighting for the man on your left and your right.
And for the guy in the middle, too.
And the guy in the middle. It's the camaraderie of men.
I can tell you, you become so focused. The entire world, I don't know how fast you've been on a land craft. The fastest I've been is about 130 miles an hour. They make motorcycles now do 205, right. 210 off the assembly line. And my son he did 165 on his one time on a permitted road. He said that it closes in. The faster you go, it's tunnel vision. And it's a joke to some. It was even in a song about telephone poles look like fence posts. And that happens in a firefight. And the enemy's firing everything they've got at you, and you see traces, you hear things slapping up against the boat that should have taken your head off. You see explosions that are close enough to damage you, and you wonder why it didn't. Let me tell you, you scream. I'm screaming, firing my 50 calibers. I had 2 of them side by side, and I was in the middle of them. I would be totally deaf for the next 2 days. Couldn't hear a thing, those guns were so loud. And my vocal cords were stressed from yelling. And I don't know that I want to know what I was saying at that time. But whenever you're in the middle of it, the guy on your right and the guy on your left are so important. But the guy in the middle, you do not want to die. You will fight. You'll do everything. Even God and country are set on the side to just stay alive one more round. And God in his mercy, that one little bullet and one hand grenade changed my life and my destination, my destiny, but not my destination. I was going to heaven. Destiny is how you go about getting there. And that changes frequently. Destinies are changed. I mean, the road to heaven will go this way, and God gets you there so you can see what you wouldn't have seen otherwise if you hadn't been there.
We got to take a break, Dave. But once again, this is Dave's book of his life story entitled Scarred, DaveRoever.org, DaveRoever.org. You ought to buy several copies, one for yourself, and then take some to the VA.
Oh, yeah. They love it.
take some to the VA. Make an effort to find Vietnam veterans in your town and just go by and say two things. I want to thank you for your service. And number two, I want to give you this as a gift. We'll be right back with Brother Dave Roever and Dan Dang.
Email your questions and comments about today's program to onair@jsm.org. Join Francis and Friends on Facebook, facebook.com/Francis Swaggart.
Yeah, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. And also, I don't know, Donnie, did you introduce Dan?
I sure did.
Okay. I missed that part of it. But, Dan, it's so good to have you here. And as I understand it, you're from Vietnam, and you're working with Dave in the ministry today.
Yes, ma'am. It's an honor to be in here today. And it's been really honored to work with Dave Roever. I met Dave in Vietnam in 1974. My father is the head of the Assembly of God before 1974. And my dad put the school assembly together. And 500 students for Dave to come to Da Nang and spoke to the student. And I'm one of that student sat there and met Dave Roever in 1974. And
tell her how we connected.
The amazing, you look at him right now, he's a lot handsome. Unbelievable. But back in 1974,
it's horrible.
I mean, we got the nightmare.
Yeah.
He came over and he mentioned, and I kept in my heart until now, he said, the first time I came to Vietnam with gun called M16, but now I coming back with John 3:16.
Oh, wow.
Oh.
And he never forgot that.
Wow.
Oh.
And then a second thing he said, when he injured, he got out from the water, and the first thing what he said, God, I still believe in you. And on the behalf of the Vietnamese people, I can say that because I'm working with a lot of Vietnamese people in Vietnam right now. They thank you for fighting for my freedom.
Don't go there.
And the Vietnam veteran, thank you for fighting for my freedom. And that freedom is not free. Thank you for all veterans and the troop and the first responder.
Yep.
To help us to fight for our freedom. And we are here because of you. Thank you.
Amen.
Vietnam veterans, I hope you caught every word of that.
But your dad was the head of the Assemblies of God?
In Vietnam.
So
the first one, yes.
Well, how then and now, how strong is the Assemblies of God in Vietnam under a communist government?
It's amazing. When I'm saying amazing, because 1975, when the company took over, and looked like that's it. Everything you lock the door and throw the key away until 1989. So the Assembly of God coming back.
Okay.
And Dave Roever coming back to Vietnam in 1994. And his whole heart is compassion lead to conversion. So we coming back to Vietnam in 1994. We work with the hospital. We work with the children ministry,
Compassion.
like street children, the orphanage. I mean, name it. We got almost every single area for compassion. And
in 1999 and 2000, we built the first cardiac care center in the nation with a catheterization lab. And we do heart stents, pacemaker, angiogram, angioplasty, $14.7 million project. Cashed it out, did not borrow a dime. And we're able to give the people a good care for their heart. And that's what was happening over there. People dying, and it could have been fixed.
Yeah.
They'd bend over, pick up a baby, and die because they had so many blockages. And so I was able to secure a cath lab, a Toshiba digital imaging cath lab, state of the art. And in addition to that, we put in Hewlett-Packard 36 beds, half telemetry and half hardwire to monitor their hearts. and we save 300 lives a year that would have died on an average. Not to mention all the people who have improvement in their quality of life. Well, we became great friends with the communist government. I never dreamed that I could be a friend with the communist government. And the vice president herself, Madam Bunn, and I became best of friends. And to this day, she's still alive, but she's no longer vice president because she aged out. But she and I'm going to go to her funeral when she passes. I've never been to a Buddhist funeral, but I'm going. And I hope that we've been able to plant enough seed in that woman and many, many more in the top government of Vietnam, in the Politburo of the Vietnamese government, plant the seed of hope. I can't say it on television, but afterwards I will tell you privately. But we have invested in something that we believe will be the future of the greatest awakening spiritually in Vietnam history. And I have every reason to believe you reap where you sow. God is going to do that. Donnie is going to do it.
I travel, well, this year's been because of the pandemic, but I always travel. And I've had Vietnam on my bucket list of a country that I just wanted to go.
When you're ready, we'll take you. That's a public statement. We'll take you.
I'm going to take you up on that.
Well, it's a done deal right here.
I want to go to Vietnam.
Well, I want Dan to finish your question because Dan he made a statement to his dad after he went home from that meeting as a 15-year-old boy. He said, I'm going to follow in Mr. Roever's footsteps. And his dad, laughingly said, what are you going to do, get in his suitcase? The next year, they were marked for assassination. They were out in the South China Sea in a little boat. And an American Navy ship out of Guam picked them up and saved their lives.
Wow.
Got them all the way to Omaha, Nebraska. He had to learn English to go to school. He graduates, gets a master's. Now he's PhD, but he had a master's in business. And who calls on him but Tandy Corporation, headquartered in Fort Worth, where I live. And he didn't know I was there. I didn't know he was. They put him, he becomes a big muckety-muck. In 16 years, he's at the top of Radio Shack. He's got all these Radio Shacks all over the country under his perusal. And they send him to the one on my parking lot in Fort Worth, Texas, to go through and see how their operating conditions are and check up on. My brother walks in to get a little piece of wire for our television program we were doing for high schools. And he said, who do I charge this wire to? And he asked that question. My brother said, to Dave Roever Ministries. Dave Roever, he said, I know that. I know Dave Roever. He come to my school in Da Nang.
Wow.
My brother comes back and said, you got to come to Radio Shack.
Oh.
I walk in, he says, you Dave Roever? I said, yes, I am. Who are you? He said, I'm Dan Dang. I told my father I'd follow your footstep. I said, there's my office right over there. You did a good job.
Yes.
Tell me, and today, in Vietnam, he is over all of our ministries for foreign missions. We're in 36 countries, a dozen languages. Vietnam alone, we have 120,000 students training in ministry in our online school, Global Reap University. Tell me, if God got this picture, he's got the Vietnam veterans, don't waste another day of your life. Look what God can do if you just give him a chance.
Yes.
Modern day global war on terror veterans, you've been trained, you know how to organize, you know how to take on a mission, you're fearless. Don't throw that gift away. Let God take that. He'll do things with you out of your mind. It's not going to happen overnight. It starts overnight, but it'll never finish. Eternity will always, always have something special. If you make that decision to follow Christ today, I'm not kidding.
Man.
I'm preaching now.
Amen. Go right ahead. That's tremendous, Dan. Thank God for using you like he has. And that's what God does. And we're so thrilled to have you with us here in Baton Rouge today. I'm sitting over here looking at Dave. And it's the first time I've been this close to a Purple Heart.
Oh.
That I've seen it close up. And I don't know if the camera can catch that and get any closer than they are. But
I think it was backwards, upside down, now it's straight.
look at that. That's a medal. You were given that award. You were awarded that Purple Heart. How long after?
34 years. They found out I wasn't dead.
Wow.
And the Navy SEALs sent out the Purple Heart. And General Robinson Reisner, one of the most amazing humans that I've ever met in all of my life, and one of my best friends ever, He and General Bob Meserly pinned this Purple Heart on me, but actually it was, the physical pinning was done by Robbie Reisner. He was a POW for 7 years.
I know. Yeah, I know who he is.
And he changed my life. And we traveled all over the world together with the military.
But how did the 34? But what?
He was dead.
Well, I'll tell you how they found out I wasn't dead. I was showing up.
Let's stop before you go further.
Okay.
Was your name on the wall?
Yes, it is, but not where you think. This is bizarre. Are you ready?
Oh, wow.
When you were talking about the wall, I didn't interrupt you. I was one of the speakers for the dedication of that wall.
Wow.
And I've never seen it, but I've been told that my name's up on the top of the wall for the speakers and the artists that put it all together. I don't know that that's true. I've just been told that. But I was one breath away, Donnie, one heartbeat away from them chiseling. That old death angel had the hammer and chisel ready to carve my name in that black granite. But God had another plan for me. And I stared that death angel down that day on the bank of that river with a scripture that came to my mind I learned as a boy. This Vietnam veteran, this is why I tell you, it's not about me. I'm only the glass the water's in. It's the water we're talking about. I was a kid. My mom was she was 100% disabled. I mean, she was in a wheelchair most of the time, part of the time in the bed most of the time with a breathing machine all through my life. And yet she was able to get out and pray for me, to fall on the floor and pray for me the very moment I was burning in Vietnam. She didn't know, but God told her. But this is really, to me, one of the highlights of my life. Robbie Reisner came to, is there 5 minutes without interruption?
Oh, yeah.
Because you got to hear this.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Robbie Reisner was released from Hanoi Hilton, the Wallow prison, in 1973. I was released from the hospital at the end of 71 and went through 72 in home care. My wife, which I really want to share with you before this is over. Without Brenda, there would be no story. Without my wife. I'm just flat out telling you, all you ladies, you stand by, because the highest credit can be given to a woman will be given today that I can't. But Robbie, he was released, and we went to the same place, not knowing he didn't know me, I didn't know him. Although I'd heard about him as the Man of the Year on the front cover of Time magazine.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And his story, and how when Jane Fonda went to North Vietnam and stood up with the North Vietnamese, he personally, this is not hearsay, he looked me in the eye, I heard it with his own lips. He said, they gave us more hell than we had ever known, because the Vietnamese thought they had all of America standing with her against those pilots in that.
Right.
Most of them are pilots.
Yes, yeah.
He said they beat us more, they hurt us worse. And I think people should know that. I think they should. Can we forgive? Oh, yes, I can forgive anything she's done or anything I've done or anybody else has done. Forgiving's easy for me, because I had to be forgiven. But I'm going to tell you, the truth is, she hurt a lot of men, and they don't know how to forgive. And Robbie, he comes out of Landstuhl, Germany, where he had gone for debriefing after being released by the North Vietnamese. He comes to Miami Beach, Florida. I go to Miami Beach, Florida. It's the General Council, 1973, of the Sons of God. I'm sitting in the balcony. I have one eye, one nostril, and one ear. Everything, and if you look close, you can see there's two different colors on my face. All this skin came off other parts of my body. I'll specifically tell you it was my legs, but they wanted to do my face from a different part of my body. They said it's a perfect cosmetic match. I said, I don't care what it is, you're not doing that. People won't know if I'm coming or going, you know. So they took it off my legs and saved it. Anyway, you don't tell people, kiss my face, you know, that just doesn't come off right. And so I said to Brenda, I said, I'm going to go to that General Council. Robbie, no one knew he was coming. I wanted to go to hear the best speakers in the world, I thought, because I thought the Assemblies of God meant similar to God. Then I found out different later. But they had these great speakers. My dad had to give me $600. It was a 1,200-mile one-way trip. I get there, had enough money for a round trip, hotel, meals. Can't do that today, but it was. I get there, and one eye, one ear, one nostril, red skin over here. The eye was covered up. It wasn't even there. It was covered over with skin. No ear. It looked like a roll-on. And I walk in, and people just, they look, and I said, baby, get me out of here quick. Get me out, get me out, get me out. And she said, no, we're going to stay. You need to be here. That's a little teenage girl. I said, then let's go to the balcony. Nobody will see me up there. And so I'm sitting in the balcony, and it's fine. There's nobody up there until the thing starts rolling. Then the balcony starts filling, and it fills. And now I got people on both sides of me, but I'm on the back row. Nobody behind me. So I've got an escape route. If I want to get up and get over that chair behind me that I'm sitting in, there's no one back there. Everybody's real close now. And all the speeches are over, and they say, now we have a special guest. We will let him introduce himself. And now to stage left walks a man in a beautiful U.S. Air Force uniform. He was, at that moment, still a colonel. He would retire as a
I was there.
You saw this moment. He walks out to a full bird colonel. He takes the podium, and as he walked out, I said to my little sweet wife, I said, baby, that man's in pain. I didn't know who he was yet. He hadn't introduced himself. I said, that man's in pain. She said, how do you know? I said, he walks like I do.
Yeah.
I could tell every step was a jolt to his joints, and his body was hurt. He took the podium, and it was not a podium then. It was a walker. He was holding on to the podium. My name is Robinson Reisner. I'm a colonel of the United States Air Force. I've just been released from the Hanoi Hilton, where I spent 7 years of my life, 4.5 in solitary confinement. They beat me with a lead pipe on the head. They tied my shoulders behind my back and twisted till they burst my chest open. I listened to men screaming. I prayed for them. They stopped screaming. I started praying again. And when I stopped praying, they started screaming again. And then whenever they would scream, I would pray, and they would stop screaming. And then I realized it was me that was screaming. He told his story. I feel a tug on my coat, and I look around. I'm standing. I'm the guy that wanted to be away from everybody. And my wife looked up, and she pulled my, baby, sit down. You're going to embarrass yourself. I said, I can't sit down. She said, why? And I'm thinking, why am I standing? I said, there's an officer on deck. In the Navy, you stand when there's an officer on deck. You don't sit down, you stand. She said, what? And then I just looked at her and said, baby, this man's a national treasure. He's a hero. I will not sit in the presence of a hero. I will stand. I learned that from Jesus when they were stoning Stephen. He stood for a hero. He finished speaking. I told Brenda, I said, I'm going to go down and meet him. She said, you can't get through this crowd. There's 30,000 people here. You can't get through. I said, a man with one eye, one ear, and one nostril can get through this crowd. And boy, was I right. When I started down, I was in the blinders. I didn't care what people said. People, I could hear them. Alice, look at him. They thought I was deaf too, I guess. And I walked through that crowd, and they departed hither and thither. I felt like Moses, you my people. When I stepped in that crowd, I was totally lost, but for one thing. I'm going to meet that man on that platform. I got there, and that platform was as high as the ceiling. There were no stairs. I worked through the blue curtains, if you recall, that giant stage in the blue curtain. I went round, and there was a stairway up, and a rope hanging, with golden hooks on either end, hanging on golden stands. I love to tell it that way. And a little plaque that said, none shall enter. Actually, it said, do not enter. And I got to thinking, I drive 1,200 miles, spend $600. I've been shot up, burned up, blown up by hand grenades, survived 14 months in a hospital. I've been had the sheet pulled over me twice. They thought I was dead. And then I get here, I pass through 30,000 people, and this little sign says, I can't go up those steps. I've had worse. What are they going to do to me? I unhooked it. I walked up those steps. 2 men met me, and their little badge said staff. I tapped the badge on one of them. I said, I'm sorry about your infection. Staff. They laughed, and they high-fived each other, and while they were laughing and high-fiving, I shot right past them, pulled the red curtains apart, and stood in front of 30,000 people, all those godly men, and every one of them took a step back, saying things like, Jesus. I heard that in the Navy all the time, but it was a curse word. Others were saying, oh, my God. I don't say Jesus and oh, my God. I don't do that. Those words I was taught when I was a child. You don't ever take the name of the Lord in vain. But one man did not step back. He stepped up. And that man was in an Air Force uniform. He took my hand, and while he's holding this crippled hand, he pointed at my face. One word in a question form. Viet Nam? He knew. He knew I was just the right age. Here he is, 20 years older than me. He's an officer. I'm a little E4 from the U.S. Navy Special Warfare Command. Vietnam? I said, yes, sir. Then he said, son, I'm sorry. And that did not sit well with me. I exploded. I said, I don't want your pity. And I shook his hand free. I didn't come here to get your pity, Colonel. I'm standing here to say thank you for what you did. You went through that. So that little girl up there that's my wife could be free, and I can be free. Thank you. And he reached back and took my hand again. I told him later, I said, you have a Messiah complex. You thought you were going to make my fingers work because he's tugging on them. But I could see in his eyes, he's thinking, what's he going to say? When he spoke, it would change my destiny and make my destination so much more exciting. These are the words that burned into my ever-loving soul. Young man, when you've suffered for America, don't you love her so much more?
Wow.
Wow.
I will never forget. Never. I took him back to Vietnam. The first trip he ever went back, the only trip he ever went back, I took him. I guess he may have gone back on a thing with John McCain once after that. This was his first time. I took him back into the Wallow prison at Hanoi Hilton. My friendship with the government paid off. They said, we'll let you take him into his old cell. He stood in that old cell, and some bricks had fallen down. I took one brick each pocket. And he, Robinson Reisner, standing in that cell, I got pictures of all this, sang Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound that saved the... And he thought he could sing. He was terrible. Oh, he couldn't sing. He went through 3 shift changes without knowing it of progression of music. Yeah. And I'm laughing and loving it and crying. And then he quoted Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He looked at me, eyeball to eyeball. Dave, I'm free at last. Free at last. Thank God Almighty, I'm free at last. And then he pointed that wall. His cell was in the corner. He said, just over the wall, I could hear him chanting all those things about hatred of America. And he said, I never knew I would ever stand on the outside, which we did that before we went in. And he said, I never knew I'd know what it was like out here. And the man that said to me, go back with you to Vietnam? I didn't lose anything there that I need to find. I said, General. Now, that time he was a general when I took him back. I said, General, you did lose something. You lost your peace of mind to know you have not forgiven. You don't talk to generals like that, but with DOD, I am a general. I'm a 07. Now, that's a courtesy, but it's not authority. I said to him, General, you got to let it go. You got to forgive it. That day, when we walked out, we went straight to an orphanage. He adopted a Vietnamese girl, took on her entire future, clothed her, fed her for the rest of her career in the little orphanage, into high school, into college, paid for all of her education. And he didn't bring her home because that was not possible, but adopted her emotionally and secured her future. He went to his grave with great love of the Vietnamese. He loved this guy. He loved the Vietnamese people. And one of the antagonizers, believe it or not, was a minister that would go into his cell when he was in solitary and give him trouble, blame him and stuff like that. We met that guy, and I asked Robbie if he wanted to meet with him. Robbie said, it's probably best I don't. It's okay, I forgive everything. It's probably best I don't. And that minister that went in there, that he was a chaplain for the Vietnamese Army. His son was a captain in the NVA, North Vietnamese Army, and was very, very, very active on the Ho Chi Minh Trail. All of us became brothers in Christ that day. Wow. The power of forgiveness is encapsulated in the words of Abraham Lincoln. The best way to make an enemy a friend is to forgive him.
That's right.
And that has been the secret.
Forgiveness is such a powerful force.
It's why Jesus came.
We need that in this country today. But people don't know how freeing, I'll use that term, it is. You're free, and you don't have all that junk inside of you.
He'll kill you.
You know, you don't have to worry about the hate that is welling up inside of you. I mean, you thank God. You're thankful you're still here, thankful for what God has done for you. unforgiveness is one of the worst sins, and that's what America has got to come to today. There has got to be forgiveness.
You are 100% right.
It's a
That's
prison.
right. National forgiveness.
Unforgiveness is a prison.
Yes.
It's a cancer, too.
Yes.
It'll kill you while you're in prison.
Yeah. Right.
That's what it'll do.
Right. We got to take a quick break, and we're going to be right back after the break. Wow.
Truth. Sometimes it's hard to find. That's why there's Francis and Friends. Previous Francis and Friends programs are available online at sunlifetv.com.
All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. I was going to ask some questions, but I've got about 4 emails here that have just come in, and I think it'd be right to share these with Dave and Dan and our audience out there. And it says that we were blessed to have Brother Roever in our home church, Only Believe Ministries. My husband, Ted, is a Viet Nam veteran with 2 Purple Hearts. We'd love to thank him once again for his service in Nam, and most of all, here and now. Amen. Ted was born and raised a Catholic, but my sweet grandmother prayed till we both got saved and filled with the Holy Spirit. And he suffered violent nightmares for years. But praise God, he's home safe now.
Thank you, Jesus.
Isn't that beautiful?
It's a great
Francis said, my husband also joined the Navy, became a corpsman for the Marines. They called him Doc. He went to Viet Nam July 20th, 1969, and left July the 4th, 1970. He came home with all of his body parts, but with quite a bit of shrapnel in his body parts. And he didn't talk about it for years. But later, he started to open up. And as a medic, he had to find the right body parts for the different bodies to put them all in a bag together. And along with their dog tags. In other words, he had to identify all of this. She said, how horrific. No wonder these men come home with PTSD. Only God can heal a wounded heart and a broken life. And, you know, and this is so true. What we're witnesses is that's what God does.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, but this country and the American people have pushed God out of the way. We don't need you.
Look what it got us. How's that working out?
This is another. My attention has been captivated upon witnessing your Wednesday night fellowship guest speaker, Dave Roever. Dave Roever. God has done a miraculous work in his life. Miracles are meant for many. The folds of his personal blessing is well spent. Like from sea to shining sea, his life touches every facet of mankind, military, civilian, medical, educational, and more. What an amazing story and testament to how his love never fails.
What an amazing email. That lady knows how to write.
Yeah, knows. That's wonderful. Okay, it said, here in the places that you now serve, and they are impressive, is good. When the military medical team, what the military medical team did for you and allowing full disability is commendable. Yet you should know not all others have had that experience. Our VA centers here have harmed so many of our veterans. What can you do to rectify this? Many have been neglected. Many have been turned away from seeking help. Many have died because they couldn't maneuver through the system. And I've had some of their relatives write me letters, and that's true, because they had a loved one that the system did not help them. Do you think your book could help them, or being an advocate for them, which would be the best? With a specialized team behind you, the journey had to be horrific. And I know you had to be strong even with that support. Unfortunately, not all of us have medical centers that give kind care to the veterans. Maybe you have the connections to motivate someone to help other veterans that are in medical crisis. It's sad that an antibiotic could have made a difference in a veteran's life, but being placed on a waiting list, when he finally got it, it was too late.
Too late. And that's an oft-told story. But I want to tell you, there is an answer to her question. It's not a spiritual thing. This is a functional thing. How do you get the right care for our veterans? It is very simple answer, and if the majority will just stand up, it's called vote. Because the man in the White House will pull the strings. And I'm telling you, the VA was in the worst situation I've ever known it to be in past administrations. Right now, the VA is functioning better than it's functioned in decades, and it's still lagging. I'm not saying there's anywhere near perfection, but it's a whole lot better. And I'm in constant contact with veterans, and they're telling me that they are now being permitted to seek out doctors without having to go across the country to get help. They can get their local doc, and the VA is picking up the tab. So there's something good coming out of that. It's not the typical conversation of biblical and spiritual values here, but that is important. It happens with a vote. Pull that handle for the president that you think is going to help those veterans, and I think it's self-evident.
Do you think President Trump is doing all he could?
I think he's doing everything in his power right now. He's being attacked from every side, and it's a distraction to the things he wants to do the most. But I've never seen anybody that can be so enrage people so quickly with a tweet and then turn around and do what every president said they would do, and none of them ever did it. Right. He's a paradox within himself.
Yes.
And he stands up for the Jewish nation. That's why God's going to bless America in the middle of all this.
Right.
You bless Israel, God's going to bless you, individual or nation. So I say that saying, vote for whatever people want to vote for. It's up here. It's in their conscience. But if you want to see these veterans continue to get a progressively better help, not progressive in politics, progressively better assistance.
Physically.
Pull that handle for the person you think is going to make the difference.
Yes.
And you better get the politics out of your head and get some practicality in your head and just look at the record. That's all you got to do. Right. Look at the record. What happened under each administration? Bad, good, or ugly for any administration. But right now, Donald Trump has reached out to the veteran, and I'm the beneficiary of some of that.
I know, and his heart's tender toward the veteran.
Yes, he is.
He could do, and if he could, he would do so much more than he can. But he's got so much other stuff going on. I don't know how the man gets up every morning.
I don't either, and we need to pray for him or any president. I spoke at the National Mall, and as you may remember, Glenn Beck.
Yes.
Glenn and I were very close, and I was on Fox News frequently, and then on Glenn Beck's show. And Sarah Palin would do my makeup. Right. They said I had the most expensive makeup artist in the world. But I have pictures of her doing my makeup. It's one of my favorite pictures. But I want to tell you, that day on the Mall, under President Obama, that day on the Mall, I prayed for President Obama. I prayed for our Congress. I prayed for our senators, for the Supreme Court. I can't tell you how many people criticized me for praying for Obama. But the Philadelphia Gay Press wrote me the nicest letter of all people. They sent me the best letter of all people, of any people, I should say. And I tell you what matters. If people will do what the Bible says, pray for those in authority over you, and the render to Caesar what Caesar's. But there is a caveat to what belongs to Caesar. When what belongs to Caesar, I'm not talking about money. Jesus used that as an illustration. I'm talking about the reality of conscience. The reality of conscience is what belongs to Caesar, I'll give Caesar until it violates the law of God written on the table of my heart, and I call that my conscience. And I don't care who's in charge. I don't care if it's Republican. I don't care if it's Democrat. I don't care if it's independent. socialist, communist, or
Right.
Islam. I don't care. I will do what this conscience, under the control of the Holy Spirit himself, I will do what he tells me to do. And that is the biggest enemy to the challenge of freedom that there is on the face of it, is the man that has nothing left to lose. So my point is, I'll give Caesar what's Caesar's. I'll vote my conscience. But I don't care who's sitting in that White House or who's sitting on that judge's bench in the Supreme Court. I'll look back in Judges and Ruth. The last thing said in Judges is, in those days, every man did what was right in his own eyes.
Right.
Yeah.
The first statement in Ruth is, in the days when judges ruled, there was a famine in the land. And it wasn't physical. It wasn't food. I checked back in Israeli history. There's no record there was any famine. The only famine was that God was on the throne of their hearts, and there was a famine in it. And the spiritual famine comes when judges rule, not our conscience. Our conscience, by the authority of the Spirit of God, will make the right decisions. I don't care how black-robed they are and how high they sit on that bench. They're people just like us. And when a man's view supersedes God's view, when a man says, well, it's not pornography from the waist up, it's not abortion when the head is already exposed and you go ahead and suck the brain out of that baby in abortion. That, I don't care what they say. That does not supersede the law of God, thou shalt not kill. And they say, well, you're a military man. And the difference is, when you defend the innocent and take the life of the guilty in defense of the innocent, that is not murder. But when they kill that baby, that is an unspeakable crime. So there are challenges to our faith that we deal with, that I deal with. And this woman or man, whoever sent this email, you know, they know what they're talking about. That person is very intelligent. And I think it's a woman who's working with the VA.
Let's see, it's a woman.
It's a woman. Well, I might know, because women get the job done. and I'm going to show you that in a little bit, Miss Francis. But this is the truth, that veterans need all the help we can give them for two reasons. One, real simple, that veteran deserves all the help he can give. He put his life on the line and swore to die for his country. And number two, if a young person sees a veteran denied, why would that young person volunteer to serve for the defense of that nation if he's going to be treated like a dog when it's over?
Right.
Yeah.
We better wise up and realize it's a cheap investment to help the veteran get his feet back under him. And I stand for my military active duty and all of the Guard and all of the reservists and all those that wear uniform and our retired people. I stand for them and with them. I love them. I'm proud to be one of them.
Amen.
Yeah, but you know what, Dave? I'm thinking about the thousands of people that are watching right now. And they haven't suffered what you've suffered, but they have gone through issues in their lives that has caused them to become discouraged. Many of them blame God.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Why
you know,
me,
many
God?
of
The
them,
worst thing you can say.
How do you do that? I'm asking this question to you and Dan both, because you're looking at America from the other side of the world, and yet you're a born-again Christian and you love God. You're looking at America as born and raised here, loyal to this country, and you go to defend this country. You go to defend your family. You go to defend your country, and you're performing this service for your country. And look what happened to you. I hear all of your great words of instruction and comfort, but I do know that you've walked through that low valley at times in your life, and you could have had an altogether different attitude than what you have now. But the attitude that you have now is what's winning souls to Christ.
Yes, ma'am.
The other would have been destructive. Not only to your life personally, to this nation, a bitter, mean attitude. And, you know, you had every right. I'm not going to deny that. You had and Dan, you look at us under a different situation. It's a lot of people today in other countries are angry at America, and they want to see us destroyed. And they want to see bad things happen to us. And now you're here, sitting at this same table that we are sitting at. We're all Christians. We're all of the same family of God. Now, I know, you know, it takes God to do that. But Dave, you had to go through some dark times.
I did, and I still go through dark times.
I'm sure
I want to
do.
explain, but first I want to tell you something. Dan is probably the most loyal American I've ever known. His son is a captain in the Air Force, serving this country.
Wow.
And I'm looking at a man that if I had a bobbing head of him on my dashboard, I'd do it today. Dan is one of the most amazing Americans I've ever known. He's seen, as you've so perfectly stated, both sides. You've seen from both sides of the world. But I also want you to know that I have on this phone right here, and I could have sent it ahead. I didn't know for sure. If I get to come back someday, I will send ahead so they can do cut-ins of. I've had 60 operations. The last one was 4 months ago, and they disassembled this hand trying to get these fingers to work, but they gave up. They said it's not possible. But they did get me about 40% more work with these little pinchers. This hand has nothing to do. They gave me a thumb, and that's the best. They made that out of my hip, and I got a thumb now. Something I can pick up. The darkness that comes can hit you broadside. This is why it's important for you folks to stay with this program to the end. You're going to hear things from everybody that understands, but you and your friends need to hear. It doesn't matter how long you've served God, how much you know of the Bible, how much you give into your church, how often you attend. Don't tell me the devil's ever given up fighting you. He's out to stop you, and the more you serve God, the more he wants to stop you. And here's the facts. There is nothing the devil can do to pluck you out of the hand of God.
That's right.
Don't you ever think that you're at risk with Jesus. You're never. But the risk is whenever you lean on the arm of flesh, not the arm of God. And I'll show you. Whenever I was in my last big surgery, which was surgery number 50, that was a little over 3 years ago. And if I showed you on this video, on this picture, it'd make you sick. I'm not kidding, it'd make you sick. My nose was built on top of my head. My lips came from the skin that was left over from the nose they made on top of my head. They took skin from behind my good ear and made me an upper eyelid, skin from my good eyelid and made me a lower eyelid. I'm scattered all over myself, to tell you the truth. And here's the bottom line. When I looked at myself for the first time after operation number 50, I was so shocked. It was accidental. I'm in the hospital, Brooke Army Medical Center, greatest doctors in the earth are at Brooke Army Medical Center. I don't care, especially with burns and disfigurement and plastic surgery. They get me to stand up the first day. I'm still bleeding. I'm still connected to tubes. I look, when I stood up, there was a mirror that I had not seen. When I stood up, it was about from here up. I saw it. I just sat down on the edge of my bed, totally lost, because I thought, how can my wife ever love me again? How can I ever stand in front of an audience with the mutilated? I'll show you the picture today. You'll agree with every word and more that I could have said. I looked at that, and to me, it was over. I would never sit at a studio looking at a camera. I would never stand before another military audience with my training in resiliency. I would never minister the gospel of Jesus Christ I've done since I was 16 years old. It was over. I was done. And I looked at my wife and I said, get me out of here. I looked at my doctors that I love. To this day, we're tightest family in the world. Their children think we're their grandparents. That's what they're, because we go to their homes. We're forever friends and in some cases, brothers in Christ. I looked at my doctor, my favorite doctor. I said, Scott, what Stone Age university did you get your medical degree from? Your medical degree brought me this. I was out of my mind with total confusion. I thought they had ruined everything that was left because I didn't have a nose, only had this piece. I had no lips, they drooled. I've got pictures in the past. When I had all that, it didn't look that bad. Now I look back and say, whoa, I looked like that. And here's the lesson God taught me. Everything they did, because when I woke up in surgery, 3 doctors with their team behind them, 9 doctors, 12-hour surgery. I woke up, and they're standing there, and I looked up at my head doc, he said, Dave, it was a great surgery. no complications. Everything came. Well, when you can't see yourself and you're all numb,
Yeah.
you don't feel the pain. You don't know what all happened. I thought, wow, I must look pretty good, until I stood up. And that's when it went dark for me. My wife took me home, and on the way home, she stopped at Walmart to pick up some things because they told me, get home as quick as you can. Don't let the sun get on you. He said 2 things: don't let the sun shine on you, and friction is not your friend. Don't touch anything. You'll slide it off because it's brand new grafts. Don't touch your nose, and that's hard to do. So I'm sitting in the Walmart parking lot. My wife goes in. People walk up to our little Mini Cooper. They look at me, and I can hear them talking. And the sun is coming in over my right shoulder. I'm starting to panic. Listen, I'm a man of war. Make no mistake. I've been through many a battle in the battlefield and fought with all the valor I had in me to give my country, but I never lost my bowels over it. Sitting in that car, fear, ridicule, I lost my bowels. And my mind went back. When my little teenage wife would walk in, 50 years ago, walk into my cubicle, she would change my diapers because I had no control of my bowels. As a young man, I'm sitting here with no stomach, and I have no lower intestine. I have no colon at all, no stomach, just a little piece of it goes directly to my upper intestine, and yet I function like a normal guy would. And I'm sitting there, and I can't, I'm so embarrassed. I don't want her to come back. I want the door open, the odor, I don't know what to do. It's scary. That's as low as you can get. And here I've spoken to presidents. I've been in the Oval Office speaking to the presidents of this nation. And some people standing outside my car make fun of me. Or I was so lost. This was 3 years ago. I'm not talking about something so long ago. That's why you got to understand, you don't win a battle and you think the war's over. You fight it every day of your life. Right. Every day. And you can't lower your guard. And don't be slapping your wife. It leaves your midsection open. She'll attack you there. I'm telling you, you don't quit serving the Son of God, and you will not be left out by the Son of God. You got to put Jesus in the middle of the mix. So here's how I concluded. I work for American Airlines as a spokesman for them. I work for DOD as a contractor in resiliency training. I have great contacts. I love American Airlines. They pay for all my flights all over the world if it's related to the military. Right. And they pay for all of my warriors to come to our program.
Praise
they
God.
pay for everything. Wow. I love you, American Airlines. And I went to speak for their big gala for little kids. These little kids, there were 3,000 of them with mommy. Every one of them lost their dad in the global war on terror. Every one of them. They were Purple Heart families. And they asked me to they asked American Airlines to ask me to come speak at the big hotel in Dallas. I can't remember the name, but had 3,000 seat convention center. It's a huge place. Well, it was standing room only. I just came off that surgery. I'm all bandaged up, and I made a mask out of that bandage. I didn't want those kids to see this face. When I walked in, the officials with American walked up, shaking my hand, hugged me, and said, Davey, this has to be hard. I lied right through they see that crack? I lied right through it. I lied right through my teeth. I said, I'm fine. I'm ready. Inside, I was dying 1,000 deaths. This was my first presentation after seeing myself at Brook. My first one. And I got all these children and their sweet mommies out there. So I'm backstage, and I'm trying to hold it together. And then it got really bad. They gave me an escort to introduce me, and she was a Miss America. Wow. I mean, she was gorgeous, arm candy. And I'm thinking, they're gonna look at her, they're gonna say the beauty and the beast. And I'm thinking, oh God, what am I gonna say? What am I gonna say? The Lord will fill your mouth with your own foot or give you something. If you let him say it, he'll give you something good to say. She introduced me, and the children were just looking. They didn't know whether to clap or cry, you know. And she walked away, and this is my opening statement. I said, I'm sorry about the way I look today, but nobody understands the price of freedom better than you and me today. You gave something I've never known the pain of. you gave your daddy? I just gave my identity. And I said, Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall and he had a really big fall. And all these kids are leaving. I said, all the king's horses and all the king's men, they're still trying to put Humpty back together again. That explained all that to him. I said, and they're going to give it their best shot, but Humpty will never be back to normal. Except what they couldn't do, one day along came the king and put Humpty Dumpty back together again. And they all start cheering and clapping and screaming. I was the most handsome guy I had ever seen that day. And that was just a couple of years ago.
Wow.
So with that story, I tell every one of you, this man and I, he operates in Vietnam like I operate here. We're out to get our countries for the kingdom. He has 120,000 students under his control, training them for ministry. And when a Vietnam veteran said to me one day, give me one good reason you'd help those people, I said, I'll give you 59,000 good reasons. One for every dead GI, to make something good out of the tragic loss of political sacrifice for nothing, those young Americans. I said, now we're going to add value to their sacrifice. And today, God's let me double, not just the people that came to know Christ. That's a separate number. We have 120,000, double the number of veterans that were killed in Vietnam as students studying for full-time ministry in Vietnam.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Is there a God?
No, you can't.
Is there a God?
Yeah, you know, I'm sitting across this table and I'm looking at a man, and we're supposed to be enemies. We're supposed to not like each other. We're supposed to want to see bad things happen to their countries. I don't feel that. I sense his love for the Lord Jesus Christ.
Can you brighten that up?
He serves the same God I serve.
Right.
I mean, that is just...
Exactly.
It's just something that's so tremendous today, Dave.
I'm going to show something to you.
We have to take a break, but I want.
Okay, while he's getting that,
after the break, I'll show you something.
Before we go to the break, once again, go to Dave Roever's website, daveroever.org, and pick up his book, Scarred, and he's got a new book as well that we put on the screen just a moment ago. As I said earlier, buy several copies and give them to veterans, especially Vietnam veterans, and they'll thank you for it.
Yeah, we'll be right.
Find out more about Francis and Friends on our website, francisandfriends.com.